Hi there, my name is Zarita Suharski, and I am making this video today to talk to you about something that I really was not even on my radar until I started taking classes here at MacU, but it's something called plagiarism in the pulpit, and the comparison between pulpit plagiarism and academic plagiarism. So first off, academic plagiarism is really easy to define. It's when you take someone else's words, pretend they're your own words. When you use someone else's material, you want to put the footnotes in there, you want to put the references in there so that people know this is where you got the information. And it's really easy in this digital day and age for people to determine if you have plagiarized someone's work. Now, plagiarism in the pulpit is a bit of a different situation. First, research versus plagiarism, completely different ideas. So plagiarism would be defined as passing off someone else's specific words as your own, but in a larger sense. For example, someone else's life experience, a story that you read or heard from another pastor, or that you read in a book about something that happened in their life, and then if you were to turn around and pretend that was your personal experience, that would absolutely be plagiarism, and it would be misrepresenting yourself to your listeners, your congregation, whoever you're speaking to, or also just taking an entire sermon word for word that you heard somewhere else and passing that off as your own information. Again, would be very inappropriate, and it would be plagiarism in the pulpit, which is a serious thing. It would be going against your conscience. I would hope to use someone else's information and pretend it was your information. Stories, I'm saying. So that would definitely define plagiarism in the pulpit. I have a really great story that I wanted to share too, from my dad. Sorry, I'm saying my father is a teacher at a Baptist church. He does not only receives what he's supposed to talk about every week. They're all talking about the same things in all the Sunday school classes, but he specifically researches and prays and seeks the Holy Spirit to bring to his Sunday school class, which is a mixed group, all ages, what the Holy Spirit wants to say to them every week. And he's told me the story before of one week he had prayed, he had listened, he had waited. The Holy Spirit just wasn't giving him anything at all to bring before his Sunday school group. He kept praying and waiting, and finally the day of, and so he immediately noticed, and that gentleman was an anesthesiologist in town, and had just lost his first patient on the operating table. Is just his first patient ever to die on the table from the anesthesiology had just happened that week. And this guy was a wreck. He was a mess. He was totally broken from this incident, and the class was able to pray over him and just really minister to him during that time. And obviously it was something the Holy Spirit had orchestrated for that 1 hour of time of that day. And if my dad had, instead of just saying, okay, God, you've given me nothing, you've got something else in mind, if he had just brought something before them that wasn't real from the Holy Spirit, he just plagiarized someone else's words, or told someone else's story, or said, then they would not have been blessed by what God was able to do in their midst during that time. Now obviously that's not something that would be able to be a regular occurrence from the pulpit, but sometimes the Holy Spirit wants to move in a different way. And so we have to avoid not be tempted to bring something that isn't real, isn't ours, and isn't from the Holy Spirit to the people who are trusting you to speak God's words to them. Now, granted, I feel for pastors these days, though, because there is a lot of pastor burnout. We expect so much for them to bring new material every single week to their congregation, sometimes multiple instances of new material. If they have to do 2 or 3 sermons in a week, like a Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday evening, that's a lot of material. And I feel that that sometimes pastors just deal with burnout. So I am very much in favor of having a pastoral teaching team. We had that at my last church in Chicago. We had 3 or 4 teaching pastors that would teach during the month. And so it didn't leave all of the onus on one pastor every single week to be having to come up with new material, new things week in and week out. And honestly, most churches have something like that. What happens when your pastor goes on vacation or goes to preach at another church? Your youth pastor might lead, or another senior pastor. Maybe your small groups pastor would lead. So there's often others in place that can teach or preach. They just don't call it a teaching team. But I think it's a very useful thing to have for a church. The last thing I want to bring up too is something I read that Scott McKnight wrote in an article on Patheos.com. He said, let's be honest, sermons don't have footnotes, and they need not. So they need not end each separate idea with, I got this point from Ortberg, or this one from Niebuhr, and this one from Bonhoeffer. Everyone uses things from others in sermons, and when they use a lot from someone about some point, they should say so. By and large, the congregation doesn't care about you doing that. But you do need to be honest and true in the sermon, and don't speak someone else's words, passing them off as your own. So I really respect Scott McKnight. I think he's a really great professor and theologian, and agree with that 100%. So that's all I have for you today on plagiarism in the pulpit. Thanks a lot.